Marketer of the day, number 428. Practice being happy and choose to be happy to discover the opportunities, possibilities, and solutions you deserve with happiness and success coach Vernon Brown. Hey everyone, and thanks for listening. We're talking right now with speaker Vernon Brown, and he's a happiness coach, and he's successfully coached over 10,000 people in the last 4 years, and he's not slowing down. Now, Vernon is focused on solutions and not problems, and finding your happy gets you more clear, conscious, and intentional, and his direct, fun, and engaging coaching helps his clients to get to greater heights in happiness, face-to-face or virtually, and there's never any excuse why you cannot be happier in any phase of your life. So we're going to talk today about being happy. So how are things, Mr. Vernon?
Robert, thank you for having me here. Things are fantastic, and if they weren't, I would figure out a way to make it.
Awesome. And so like as we were kind of getting, I also was like, thinking in like the final minutes before calling you on the phone, like I thought of something that like I don't think I've thought about at all since I was a kid, and it was like, I used to play like Little League baseball, and when I'd practice, my dad used to like yell at me at the top of his lungs, and I think he thought that was a motivator, and maybe it worked for like a couple of weeks, but then after a while, I just kept on like stressing out about Little League baseball, and every time instead of like being excited about what could happen, I was worried about what wouldn't happen, like when I'm going to get yelled at, going to get grounded. And then maybe like a couple years later, or a bunch of years later, then I, for whatever reason, told myself that like, in building a business and stuff like that, I told myself that if I wasn't, that I had to be stressed and I had to be unhappy in order to be at the top of my game, so to speak. And I told myself that if I was happy and satisfied, then that was more of like resting on my laurels. And I kind of came to that realization maybe like a few years ago, and it's been like a daily kind of trek to get away from that way of thinking. So is that just like an off the wall thing, or is that totally typical, and is that like a common thing?
That is so typical. You'll be amazed. There's a huge misconception of being successful, being creating a certain net worth for yourself. It's surrounding being this difficult, arduous, painstakingly unhappy process. That's just not accurate at all. And it's, there's experiences that can shape that, but, really looking at how society frames it, that everyone kind of came from this rags to riches story, when I've worked with so many people who came from a riches to riches story. So that's the biggest trap. One of the many traps I see often with entrepreneurs. They think it has to be hard, and it's not true.
So what is true? How do we get over that?
Well, it's not. It's about looking at what your options are, what your opportunities are, what your solutions are, versus kind of comparing yourself or looking back on things that have happened before. If we were to look at any, persons in our life and say, let's say Arnold Schwarzenegger, and say that he had to do this at this camp and he had to sneak on this bodybuilding show, those circumstances aren't the truth for you if you wanted to be a governor. So you could use that as almost a frame set, not use his experience, but recognize, hey, you might have to do, some creative things, but it doesn't need to be hard if you want to put yourself in a certain political place or whatever your goal may be.
So we're all on different paths, and it doesn't help anyone to say, oh, well, if I'm 20 or I'm 30 or I'm 40, to look at someone and say, oh, that person passed me. It's not a linear track. We're kind of all on our own journey, I guess.
Right, exactly. And accepting that. And that's why it's so important to surround yourself with people who recognize where you might start slipping a little bit.
So have that good mastermind, have people who are kind of like pulling you up and not criticizing, but also people who are kind of helping you to where you need to be. And maybe that means that maybe some people are being honest or real with you.
Right, exactly. And like you said, such a great word here, honest. A lot of times whenever we experience some type of struggle, whether it's you're getting ready for a big interview, you're getting ready to look at a business model, have your business model looked over, we can actually internalize that as something that's wrong. And that right or wrong thinking will get you in trouble. But when you get with someone, a mastermind, a coach, a mentor, a counselor, who says, hey, what's your goal? And whatever your goal may be, you say it, and they're like, well, this is par for the course. And then it kind of puts you in a different framework. Like, oh, I'm doing this path. I'm experiencing this right now because it's part of my growth. And it just takes the emotion out of it. And you recognize this is the experience.
I like it. So sometimes, it's part of the experience. And I'm also hearing that it's that really important lesson of sometimes we got to get outside of our own head and get that group, get that coach, get that other outside
Hmm.
voice, because I mean, we on our own can only do so much. And so I'm really curious about you and your story and where you come from. And so, because I'm sure that, there's a reason why you're talking about happiness, so you must know about the good side and the bad side. So I mean, what can you tell us about yourself and what happened with you?
Well, that's such a world-class question, Robert. I love what you just said because you pointed out something that's big and a lot of people miss this. I'm a happiness coach, sure. And I just want to kind of give my definition of happiness. Happiness is not about walking around like a maniac with a smile on your face all the time, but it's about understanding that no matter what the circumstances are, you have more options, opportunities, possibilities, and solutions. There are ways to get out of this. So you're always looking for solutions and not looking at problems. But I just had to throw that out there. But for me, it was about 20 years I really was not happy. Happiness was a concept to me before it became an emotion. I'd never thought that I could smile the way that I can smile now. And it was just tough. I was overweight. I was bullied. I wasn't very attractive, considering how many people I've asked out, women I asked out on dates. It was tough. It was so tough. And when I just had this major epiphany in the universe, and I recognized it was just such a gift of long suffering that I experienced at the time. And it was about letting me see that I lived the first 20 years of my life by some, you have no choice when you're younger, but when you get older, it's by choice that you can be happy or unhappy. It is such a choice. Regardless of what you're going through, it is a choice. And I met with someone, and they just, because I'm a fanatic of having, coaching mentors, and I have my own coaches and mentors now, two of them, but they just framed it in such a way that I'm trying to think about exactly how he said it. Well, do know exactly how he said it. He said that you're going through a lot of pain and struggling right now because what your mom did to you when you were 6. And here I am, 19, 20 years old. I'm like, okay, I see what you did there. I'm in control of this half of my life. And I just went into action. And I really started recognizing what was really in front of me, not just in life, but in myself. I did a lot of introspective, and I recognized that I've always had this great ability just to kind of flip things around and kind of let people reframe, see what's really going on, and see also what their inner genius is, their true wisdom, their true gifts. And from there, I just kind of hit the ground running, and I've been doing What You're Happy now. I'm going into my 4th year, and I've been loving it. Granted, I'm not 20 years old anymore. I'm in my 30s, but it's just my life really changed once I realized that happiness can be there.
Well, great. So you had this realization, and now you've had all this success since then. So what have you built in your business?
In regards to,
In regards to books, do you have coaching clients, websites, stuff like that?
oh yeah. So sorry, I misunderstood. So I do have a website. It's whatyourhappy.com, and it's happy with an I, not with a Y. And the whole backstory behind that is if I spelled it exactly the way that it sounds, well, if I spelled it the way that the word happy, is represented, you wouldn't pay attention to it. More people are caught by the I because, obviously it's not correct. And that's what kind of brings people to the here and now. But I'm actually working on a book. I'm working on a title now. And that's going to be something I'm going to be releasing next year about happiness and how it's not a concept and how you can create actionable steps to be happier. And yeah, I'm trying to think. Also, obviously, I'm a speaker. And it's about people understanding that no matter where they are, how they are at their job and their relationship and their spirituality, there is more than what you are currently receiving. And it's not about, changing a job or changing a relationship, but really experiencing it at a different level.
Yeah, and that's definitely like a lesson that I get taught over and over again, that it's really easy to fall in that thinking of, well, I'll be happy only once this happens, or I'll be happy once I
Yeah.
do blank, and then next thing you know, you kind of took all that negativity with you. And so it's great that you do all the speaking and stuff like that. But what really caught my attention there was you were talking about the book that you're developing there
Hmm.
about some actionable steps to being happy, and that just sounds amazing, because I always thought that maybe happiness was something where either it might happen on its own, or maybe I'd have some tools in the toolbox. But if we can examine our life and go through some steps, that'd be amazing. So do you have any steps handy, or any tips or quick exercises that we can apply right away to kind of get on this happiness track?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And thank you for saying that, giving me a chance to share with your listeners. Robert, do you want to be happier is the first thing I want to ask you.
Heck yeah, I do.
All right. Well, how much time in a day do you practice being happy?
uh I don't know. I didn't think I was doing that. So I'd say maybe 0 minutes, maybe 60 minutes, just here and there, but probably subconsciously.
Well, and that's exactly what the practice is. And you know what you said is what everyone says. Practice being happy. It sounds, so obscure and like, why? Well, think about it. You practice being upset at what you're going to say to your boss, what you're going to say to the guy in the lane next to you and you're driving and going too slow. You practice just so many things that don't benefit you. Why not practice? What's the harm in practicing being happy? What type of
None.
conversations would you like to have? And that's what it is. It's no different to being an entrepreneur. You or any job. You work because you imagine what you want. Let's do the same thing with your happiness. That's a huge one. Uh,
So practicing being happy. I mean, it sounds great, but how the heck does that work?
You literally set intentional time aside to play with yourself in such a way that you enjoy it. That sounds bad when I say it that way, but
Yeah.
well, you set time aside to say, hey, this is what I want from my life. Hey, these are the kind of conversations I want to engage in that open me up to, to more possibilities and solutions. This is what I want my, romantic life to look like. And things like this, they really get you thinking more and reacting less because you start showing up with a purpose.
I like it. So in other words, like have that plan written down so that way you actually know what you want, as opposed to keeping it in your head where you kind of your brain plays tricks with yourself and you might think you know what you want, but if you don't actually spend the time to flesh it out, then you're just always kind of in a rush and not really taking that goal seriously.
Yeah, exactly. And, the next thing to share with you is, where's your happy list? Do you have a list of things down that make you happy?
I don't. I mean, what kind of list are we talking? How long does this have to be?
Well, that's the beautiful thing. My business name and my company's name is What's Your Happy? Everybody's definition of happiness is so unique to that person. And it's about you. We have a list of our to-do list of things we don't want to do. We got a list of bills that we want to forget to pay. Let's have a list of things that we want to engage in, some things that we're curious about, some new, if you're not sure what you put on your happy list, what are some things you would like to have on it? When's the last time you thought about ice skating? When's the last time you thought about doing something that completely disengages anything else? I mean, just disengages just the things that we normally become anchored to. Alcohol, get rid of that. Friends and family, get rid of that, and look at, and also get rid of spending and buying, but just doing those things that edify you. Find the activities that really, light you up inside and schedule those intentionally and write it down so you can't forget.
Well, great. Well, it sounds like a lot of this is like breaking the existing, like, setting up new things, but also just breaking these existing cycles, breaking the bad habits that are already in place.
Mm-hmm. It's easy thing to do to fall into the cycle, as you said, of I gotta have to go to work. Why do I go to work? To get ahead. What do I need to get ahead for so I can buy more things? And now you got ahead, you're working, you bought more things. How old are you now? And then you realize that you haven't done things that you really wanted to do. Maybe you said yes to a lot of things you wanted to say no to, but you decided to do it because you didn't want to hurt that person's feelings. Well, what that can do for you is it can rob you of a lot of time, happiness, and enjoyment that you could be experiencing along the way.
Sounds painful.
Yeah, it can be.
So okay, so having a happy list sounds great, and so you do your speaking and stuff like that, and so I'm sure that you must have like, oh, good to see you there for a second. I'm sure that you must have seen like from like your speaking adventures and stuff like that. You must have heard like some really amazing things on the happy list, I imagine. So do you have any interesting like stories or things from people's lists to share?
Well, I can share one great thing that happened with one of my clients. He's 80
Perfect.
years old. Well, he's over 80 years old, and he had a fear of heights. Well, let me tell you something about a man that's in his 80s and tells you he's afraid of heights, and that's what's really been holding him back. It wasn't just a fear of heights, but just the fears in general, and that's what we coached around. Well, when he got to the end of his 3 months, 3 months with me, we went ziplining together. That was part of his happy list that he created to show that he conquered his fear. Absolutely amazing because I didn't realize how scared of heights I was until I got up there. And that was just such a cool thing to experience that with my client and just the whole evolution of things with that. I think the one that kind of jumps into my mind is one of my clients is an attorney, and she was not happy at her job. She was working long hours. She just zapped up all her energy. Now, once we got her energy up, she realized that she had forgotten that she wanted to write children's books. And it was just such a crazy thing because when we figured out how to build that, put that time, just 30 minutes a day for her 2 to 3 times a week, it changed everything. And she's actually in the process now of publishing her first book.
Amazing. So it's one thing to say, like, here are the things that I don't like and to make that a happy list, but then how does someone get from having that list and spending time on it every day to actually making that happen?
Well, it's going to be a choice, a very strong and painful and ugly choice about, Vernon is asking me to take time aside for myself. How dare he? And it's about you getting rid of that voice that's in your head, the inner critic. The critic is there to protect you, but just always remember on the flip side of that, the critic is not in charge of your happiness. Your brain is designed to keep you alive. It is not designed to keep you happy. And that's when we've really got to focus on getting that critic to power down, getting it to just completely, knock it off and stop talking to you.
So are there any tricks to that? Because I mean, sometimes it's like the inner critic just won't shut up, or it seems like this pattern has been going on for so long, it's hard to develop new habits. So what the heck do we do there?
We've got a couple options. Well, we got a few different options. The first one that always jumps into everyone's mind, I'm sure you've experienced this, is exercise. When you hear that critic, take a walk. No matter what has started and initiated that critic, take a walk. Go on a bike ride. Go outside, smell the air. Get your heart rate up because you cannot be angry in exercise. You can try to focus on one particular thing, but after about 5 to 10 minutes, you're going to realize you still feel energized, but the hate has gone or that extra energy tends to dissipate. Another really great thing is music and pictures. Listen to your favorite song. I would not, however, if you're in a particular state that makes you a little aggressive, you listen to anything that is aggressive, but just listen to some of your favorite songs. Listen to Johnny Cash. Listen to Ring of Fire. Just listen to something that takes your mind away from it constantly and consistently and have these things ready because we're humans. We're going to have our ups and we're going to have our downs. So expect for those to happen. It's not saying that you want negative things to happen, but just be prepared for when it happens. You don't have to think about it. You just go. Listen to the Spice Girls and take a walk.
I love it. Change the channel, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
is there any have you encountered any people who like are kind of resist your happiness ideas? Because I imagine that if people aren't open to these new ways of thinking, they might be thinking like, oh well, if I'm focused on being happy, that's like having my head in the clouds, or if I'm too happy, I might lose my edge. Do you hear any of those sort of objections?
Often. I heard it 3 times a day. And one thing that's really different about my coaching is I don't have a menu of things. My client is the agenda. And wherever my client is that's where I am, and I have to adjust my style to them. So, for example, when someone said, using your phrase, oh, you put your head in the clouds, or that doesn't get things done. Well, if you continue down this path with the way that you're handling things, how do you think that is going to impact your happiness? Is the first question that came to my mind when I was with my client, and I asked them that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's sort of a scary question to ask because, like, if you continue down this path until you're 60, 70, 80, 90, and you're still thinking the same way, I mean, no one wants to go for that long a time and have no personal growth and kind of just be in the same old mess in their head that they're in right now. So, I mean, that's just like, that's a great way of looking at it. It's kind of like what was that? That there was like the Adam Sandler movie, like Click or something, where he had like the remote and he could fast forward his life, and then next he's like fast forwarding too much, and then nothing's changed. It's like the ultimate worst case scenario right there.
Yeah, and exactly. And you mentioned, especially when someone says, and I love when real estate agents come to me, and they'll say they don't, or salespeople in general, they'll say they don't want to lose their edge. And I, instantly just kind of reframe that. So you want to continuously swing your axe. What would happen if you stopped swinging it and sharpened it so you can chop down more trees? And it's like you're not resting, you're not relaxing. You're literally sharpening your blade so you become more efficient, more effective, and you become friendlier. You become happier. You become more successful.
I love it. So yeah. So it's like all this time people have had to kind of overcome all the bad stuff, overcome the negativity, or like try to ignore it while being at their best. But what if the negativity was kind of conquered, and what if it wasn't there anymore, and what if happiness was natural? Now that seems like that would free up a lot of brain space to actually be at their best, as opposed to trying to ignore the elephant in the room while being at their best.
Yeah, and Robert, when you just kind of said something and it makes me react to it, a lot of times, people say, well, I'm afraid of success. Well, that's something that a lot of people aren't even aware of. Success becomes something to manage. Let's just say you're selling whatever product it is. If you become really successful at it, you're going to have to maintain it, and that in itself can make people very fearful. That can make people very hesitant. So a lot of times, well, majority of the time, my clients, towards the end of the coaching session, the last 4 weeks of the coaching, they are all one big thing that we tackle on the last 4 weeks is how to manage success so you can keep it. Because then again, it's more work if you don't understand how it works.
Right. And so you've mentioned your coaching a few times here. So I'm really curious about that. Can you tell us what kind of websites you have and what people can do once they get there?
So my website, it's what'syourhappy.com, and it's happy with an I. You go there, and I just do my best to keep things so simple. It's go to our website. I have a 2-minute video. I got a bio, and all it says is click here to be happier, or click. Don't you want to be happier? Click here. You punch in your name. You let me know what's going on, and I get back to you. I contact you myself, not my virtual assistants, and I get back to you. We set some time up, and we get it rocking and rolling. We do a discovery session to make sure we're a great fit, and I require 3 months. The first month, the first 4 weeks, you are like more frustrated with me than anything because I ask you the questions that help you grow. I ask you the questions that no one else will ask you because they're afraid they're going to hurt your feelings. I ask you the questions that you know the answers to and you've told yourself you don't know. So it's uncomfortable. And I even have it in my coaching agreement. If you're not ready to be uncomfortable, I am not the person for you. I'm not here to lie to you. You wasted so much time in your life. We spent so much time in your life with these things that you're talking to me about. Let's get on with it and, not make it complicated. Now, the second month, you get a little frustrated with yourself because then you start realizing that, oh my gosh, it's been right here the whole time, but I wasn't realizing it. And then the coaching just becomes about, hey, it's okay. I'm glad you're here now, so let's look at what we can do. And by the third month, it's all about how can we maintain this and duplicate it numerous times over and over again without me, because it's not about me telling you what to do. It is about the questions. And we have a great time along the way. And there's never a reason, like you said at the beginning, to miss a coaching session. There are too many ways we can connect, thanks to the beauty of the internet, that you got to be there.
Well, great stuff. Well, it seems like this is something that everyone needs, especially if they're kind of at the end of the rope, or if they feel like they're kind of always fighting the same battles, making the same mistakes, the same thinking, kind of going on the same path. Like if it's that bad, it's time to change it. So people need to go to what'syourhappy.com. That's happy with an I. Click and get signed up, and that way Vernon will contact you. You can get that discovery session set up, and then see if you're ready to move to that next level there of getting the coaching, of going through that little bit of the uncomfortable phase. But doesn't it sound like a good idea to go through a little bit of an uncomfortable phase for the rest of your life to finally begin to have things figured out, to now be on the right track? Or you could stay comfortable now and be miserable forever, which sounds like kind of a scary place to be. And so, Mr. Vernon, as we're winding down here, do you have anything, any like message specifically for entrepreneurs about being happy? Because it's one thing to say, here's some general advice about being happy, but what about us entrepreneurs, people who we're kind of running our own business, sometimes uncertain about the future? I mean, what do you have for advice to tell us?
If there's anything I can say, is you can be happier and more successful than what you currently are if you stopped being busy. I see it time and time again when I work with entrepreneurs. They're too busy and they're not really enjoying the process. You're an entrepreneur because you're willing to take risk. And that's half the battle, right? That's 80% of the battle. You decided and then you acted on it. Enjoy it, because you wouldn't have done it if you didn't think you were going to be successful. So stop being busy. Be productive. If you have 10 things on your to-do list, break it down to 5. And then I challenge you to cut that in half, because it'll make you think more and become more efficient so you can just really appreciate the process that's going on. We make it so complicated as entrepreneurs, and we do not need to make it this complicated. It doesn't need to be hard. There's going to be some difficult days, sure, but it doesn't need to be hard. So don't fall into someone else's narrative.
I love it. Amen to that. So I'm all about keeping it simple. And so make sure if you got anything out of today's session, which I think you guys did, go to what'syourhappy.com. That's happy with an I. And check out what Vernon has to you. And we'll see you on there. And thanks, Vernon, for stopping by and for sharing some of this great stuff with us.
Thank you, Robert. You guys are great. Thank you. Thank you.
Want to listen to more fantastic Marketers of the Day? Subscribe to us at marketeroftheday.com/iTunes and browse past episodes at marketeroftheday.com.